Tonight to the Supreme Court rejection of a state law championed by Governor Ron DeSantis. That law limits drag performances in the state, and it was just blocked by the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices citing First Amendment issues.
The Protection of Children Act was designed to prevent kids from being exposed to sexually explicit live performances. ABC Action News reporter Eric Waxler is taking an in-depth look at the decision and is now talking to folks on all sides tonight.
The Supreme Court ruling means Florida cannot temporarily enforce a law, making it a crime to allow children to attend sexually explicit adult live performances, which could include drag shows. The law is part of the Protection of Children Act Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law in May, but was later blocked in district court. State Representative Randy Fine sponsored the original bill. He says the decision means the case will now go back to being heard at a lower court.
This was a procedural decision on whether to allow the bill to be implemented while it's being sued over. The answer is no, we're going to have the lawsuit first. And so now it will go through the three levels of our judicial system, and we'll see where we shake out.
Hamburger Mary's in Orlando brought the lawsuit against the state. They had hosted what they call family-friendly drag shows, but they say the new law would deprive their business of its First Amendment rights to free expression. Carlos Guillermo Smith is a former lawmaker who is now senior policy advisor at Quality Florida. He says Hamburger Mary's will prevail in its case.
It's been very clear since day one that not only Governor DeSantis, but Republicans in the legislature who wrote this bill intended to target the free speech rights of drag queens and LGBTQ owned or allied businesses.
The Hamburgers Mary's locations in the Tampa Bay area also hosted drag shows, but they are no longer open. Meanwhile, Fine says those events are not family friendly and says the state has the right to protect children from what he calls live sex shows.
If it was women dressed as female strippers, I would have been equally offended. So it has nothing to do with the fact that it's men pretending to be something that they aren't. It's simply the action, whether it's being done by a man or a woman, it's simply not okay.
I have absolutely no idea why there's people out here so strongly advocating for children to go to drag shows.
Jake Hoffman is executive director of the Tampa Bay Young Republicans. He says because the Supreme Court decision is not a judgment on the law itself, he still feels confident it will eventually go into effect.
I don't think it's a First Amendment issue. I don't think it's an issue about, all of the things that you're starting to hear people talk about. It's about why would you advocate for children to go to drag shows?
DeSantis has made issues regarding gender and sexual orientation in schools a part of his campaign platform, but Guillermo Smith says the culture wars are not helping him.
He needs to stop obsessing over drag queens and LGBTQ people and maybe start obsessing over car and property insurance rates that are through the roof here in the state of Florida.
The state has requested the Supreme Court narrow the statewide injunction so the law could be enforced against every business except the one suing them, Hamburger Mary's. Eric Waxler, ABC Action News.